The last lecture has been a tradition in academia for many years. It got famous when a man named Randy Pausch offered a last lecture at Carnegie Mellon. He was a young man, had 3 children under 5, had pancreatic cancer, and they asked him to present a last lecture, which was then published as part of a book of some of his other talks and lectures that he had given over time. But the whole notion of a last lecture became famous after that, although at Carnegie Mellon, after he gave his last lecture, he passed away a few months later, then they changed the name of it there from last lecture to Journeys. I'm going to share some thoughts with you, but they are not necessarily in any logical order. They're not meant to be. They're not in chronological order, logical order, or any other kind. So there are many what we call non sequiturs. You think, why did he say this after he said that? Because he thought of this at one time and that at another time, and didn't think about them at the same time. Now, this is a problem. When people and speakers or people doing introductions or bringing a group to order, they always say, would you please turn off your phones? If you have your phone on you, would you please mute it? And I would suggest that this has become very significant in my own life. I didn't put that there because I want you to silence your phones so that you don't disturb me. Cell phone, one of the greatest inventions ever in the history of mankind. Cell phone, one of the worst inventions ever in the history of mankind. I literally know hundreds of people who are addicted to their cell phones. We've got to share with people what we wore this morning, what we had for lunch, and that I'm thinking seriously of having some wine, and boy, I'm having a hard time losing weight, and you aren't going to believe what my hair looks like today. And we put that out there as if somehow the world will not be quite the same unless they get to share this with us. The silence that we're destroying is our own. Our time to think, to meditate, to be quiet, to relax, to ponder, to worry, to fear, to love, to think, to pray. Disturbed by the hour, by the minute, by the second, throughout the day. And what bothers me the most about this addiction, that in the last few years, we've had such a problem with something that didn't happen anywhere near in the numbers that it does today. And I'm talking about suicide among junior high, high school students, and even college students. The single greatest occasion of bullying in our society happens on the telephone. You can say anything you want to anybody. A compliment, sure. A lie, why not? Something embarrassing, naturally, and you presumably can stay anonymous. And we are capable of hurting each other. We're capable of damaging each other. A tremendous source of information, a tremendous assistance in an emergency, a tremendous device when we need to communicate for very good reasons, and an instrument of destruction. All I'm suggesting to you is that things like cell phones attack one of the most precious gifts that we are capable of, the gift of silence. And so I pass this on to you for what it's worth, realizing that most people exercise zero control over the use of the phone, and I'm suggesting it's something that you might want to think about. We move on. 3 things are very hard that I know of. Steel, diamonds, those are easy, but knowing oneself, that is a hard thing to come to grips with. You can touch a diamond, you can touch steel, but can you really be in touch with who and what you are as a person? That is the tremendous challenge. It's the ultimate challenge in many ways. Partly because we already think we are experts on the subject. But if you can be silent long enough, you actually have a chance to come to know yourself. Believe it or not, this was my hometown church. They started building this church in 1890 in a little textile town called Fall River, Massachusetts. There is no reason why we should have had a church that size in this little French-Canadian ghetto in my hometown. They started building it in 1890. They dedicated it in 1906. This church seated 1,600 people. That was the ceiling. It was painted by a man named Ludovic Cremonini. And it was his attempt at interpreting Michelangelo's Last Judgment on the ceiling of the Sixtine Chapel. He did 18 paintings in the church. This was the major one. It took him 4 years. If you could take a magnifying glass and focus on the individuals, you'd realize that every individual in that painting was a local citizen, a parishioner in the church. To the left of Jesus, of course, is hell. And this painting is the largest in the world of any attempt to redact Michelangelo's masterpiece, put it in painting anywhere. So this painting, Notre Dame de Lourdes Church. So you've just seen this beautiful church. Those two steeples, 310 feet high, about 31 stories high, all made out of copper. That's why it actually has a bluish tint, because that's what happens to copper when it's oxidized. 310 feet high, an absolute unbelievable masterpiece. And what you need to know is that not unlike Notre Dame de Paris, that's what happened to it. Isn't that unbelievable? Except the steeples didn't make it. You can melt copper fairly easily. And so in my life, my favorite all-time church in my backyard burned down. I went to a high school named Monsignor Prevost High School, named after a priest's name whose last name was Prevost. Brothers taught there. Brothers staffed the school, operated the school. And guess what happened to Monsignor Prevost High School? Anybody want to guess? It burned down. I went to junior high school with the brothers in Fall River, Massachusetts. You catching on? Guess what happened to my junior high school?
I don't like the way this is going.
I hadn't thought of that. My junior high burned down. And so I'm one of those rare individuals who can be anybody that I wanted to be, and you can't check the records. Because they're gone. From the church, from the high school, from the junior high. And so when I got to Walsh in 1963, I could be anybody I wanted to. Isn't that neat? When I saw Notre Dame burning the other day, a few days ago, and Terry and I have led pilgrimages of students there on 7 or 8 occasions, it just brought all this back to me. So I grow up in Fall River, Massachusetts. My dad's working in the textile mills. My mother sews in the shirt factories. I need to go to college. I asked my dad what the parent contribution would be for financial aid, and he laughed at me. He said, why do you think there's anything left? Do you think we have this little college fund for the 6 of us? He said, you're going to have to find a school that's going to be willing to give you a scholarship. And of course, my high school was staffed by the brothers, and Walsh College had just opened, got on the bus, came out to the Wild West knowing that I would meet cowboys and Indians. As soon as I got off the bus, walked onto the campus, what is now the quadrangle, was a wonderful field of alfalfa. Had no idea what it was or what it was for. The first job I ever got was to trap groundhogs. I had no idea what a groundhog was. Only job in my life I got fired from. Part of my life has taught me something that I need to share with you. So once upon a time, my wife and I, Terry, were living in Mantua, Ohio. One day, Terry says, we got to go visit the neighbor, the Frightingers. I said, why do we have to go over there? Because they invited us. Well, I had a little problem. The neighbors had a pig farm. Didn't want to go there. Could smell the odor already. Didn't need, well, we were going to walk over there. And while we drove over to the pig farm, and we walk in, and he says, you've got to see my pigs. And I'm thinking, who says that? You got to see my pigs. So I walk in the barn, and he's showing me how well this is all organized. The stench, of course, is overwhelming. But he's got cement down the main aisles, and I'm walking on the main aisles. But I'm thinking, this is a bad experience. This is not good. What he didn't tell me was that when you walked on that cement, the concrete was only so wide. And then it dropped off to 2 ditches on the side where all the wash-off went. All the bad stuff went. And my wife Terry called me for something or other, so naturally I turned around immediately to respond to her call and walked into the trough. First, they looked at me. Then they laughed at me. Then one offered me clothing. Terry would not let me get in the car. I had to walk home. And it was a couple of weeks before all elements of the odor had left my precious body. I thought I was in a bad situation. You can make them worse. We really have a tendency sometimes to make some bad things far, far worse because we get so focused on the bad part. My dad said this to me many, many, many times. My dad was an immigrant, worked the night shift in the textile mills, finished 5th grade. 5th grade. And he's calling me dumb. Now, I'm thinking, I'm pretty smart because I got past 5th grade. You know, I passed him long ago. I'm in 8th grade by now, 9th grade. He keeps telling me how dumb I am. So why am I dumb? Well, my dad was a jack of all trades. So anything to be fixed in anybody's house, apartment, or car, he could fix it eventually. And I was the guy who they wanted out of the house, so I had to go with him all the time because I had I thought exciting effect on my brothers and sisters, but they didn't all feel that way. And so whenever he needed a tool, he'd send me for a tool. What first got me identified as dumb is when he said, go get a monkey wrench in the basement. Could most of you just finished college. Come on. You would immediately be able to pick out a monkey wrench, right? As opposed to a pipe wrench. Because you can't do the same thing with a pipe wrench that you can do with a monkey wrench, so you got to understand how this works. And I would always come back with the monkey wrench if he wanted the pipe wrench, or the pipe wrench if he wanted the monkey wrench. But I had straight A's in school, so I'm thinking, I'm pretty smart. He kept saying, how dumb can you be? You know, we all have those moments, don't we? Things that we should know, we could know, we ought to know, we knew, we forgot. Somehow, they are going to happen in your life if they have not happened already. As my dad said, you can be so smart, it makes you dumb. So Kevin, I stole this one from you. Kevin's the superintendent of the East Canton schools, and every Monday he sends out these wonderful little messages to all of his staff. And this was in one of them. A man named Dan Millian wrote a piece called The Peaceful Warrior. And in it he says, and this struck me so much I had to share it with you, the smallest good deed is better than the grandest good intention. How easy it is for all of us to think about the illustrious careers we're going to have, the world we're going to change, the kids we're going to raise, the goals that we're going to meet, the challenges we're going to overcome. That's okay. Have all those. Don't forget to do somebody a little favor. Don't forget to hold the door. Don't forget to say thank you. Don't forget to say, can I help you? Because all those great intentions, as wonderful as they are in no way as meaningful to the person for whom you do one little thing while you're thinking about and dreaming of those great, grand intentions. My father-in-law, Terry's dad, he took a blank sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11, and he had somebody type on it, "Don't confuse activity with productivity." He had about 100 of them made. Literally pasted the walls of a 3-story building with that note. We all have a tendency to fall into the activity trap. You can't believe how hard I worked. I can't believe you don't appreciate how hard I worked. I worked my tail off writing that paper and I got an F. You know how much time I studied for that test and I only got a D. You know how hard I worked to try to please you. You know, I've been saving for 4 years to buy that car and now the engine's blown. And Al would say, don't confuse activity with productivity. Some of your professors are here. When you submit a paper, they don't say to you, please, on the front page, write down how long it took you to write the paper. And whoever took the longest to write the paper gets the A, and the one who took the least amount of time to write the paper gets the F. Wouldn't that be terrible? It's not about how long it takes you. It's about what did you produce? What did you create? What did you do? This one here hit me quite a few years ago, and it's really helped me tremendously throughout my life. We spend hundreds and hundreds of hours worrying about what people think of us. If you read The Spectator, the university newspaper, the student paper that came out yesterday, I read all that today. There was an article in there by a young woman who said, I couldn't believe I was reading it. She said, you know, the first 2 years at Walsh, I spent most of my time worrying about what people thought about me. I'm thinking, we all do that. And yet the fact, and somebody told me this once, and I thought, you're right. They said, don't worry so much about everybody thinks about you, your suit, your shirt, your tie, your hair, or anything else. They don't. And yet we are so affected by what we think other people think about us. Save yourself the energy, save yourself the stress and the frustration. And I don't mean this in a negative way, but honestly, mainly they don't. Now this one's a little different. Go to funerals. My family makes fun of me because I like funerals. Maybe it's a little aberration in my development or my character or my personality. When you go to the funeral and you go to the funeral home and you walk into the greeting area as you're approaching the casket to pay your respects, family, and so on, there are all kinds of things displayed, right, in that area as you walk in, before, behind, beside, and everything else. What's displayed? What's the main thing you see? Pictures, right? Pictures of houses, pictures of people's cars, pictures of people's favorite outfit or dress or suit or tie, pictures of a boat they have, pictures of, is that what you see? Or do you see pictures of people? And birth is a phenomenal thing, but I also think that eventually death is a phenomenal thing. And when you get to that funeral, look around. There is no testimony to the things that people have accomplished, the things that people have gotten possession of, the things that people savored and spent their money on. People, people, people. Go to funerals if you forget, and take a look at what it is, the great memories of human beings that are left behind, the greatest achievements of human beings, their networking, their friendships, their relationships with people. And honestly, funerals are a great place to witness the truth and validity of that. I am a person who keeps to-do lists. In fact, I love writing to-do lists so much that I regularly make them for my wife, so she too can share the joy. But here's the kind of list I suggest you do. You're now 19, 20, 21, 22 years old. Imagine if somebody said, sit down and start making a list of the top 5 things that you feel you've been able to overcome and succeed at in your life. And next year or next month or in 2 years, put down the next 5, and then put down the next 5, and put down the next 10. And instead of a to-do list, which is a burden that you face every morning, as you, in my case, eagerly cross things off, make that list of the significant things that you've been able to do. You're about to leave college. You've been bumming around here for 4 years. Before that, you bummed around for 4 years. You've been living off your family for 21, 22 years. What is it you've done? I know you eat. I know you play. You listen to music. The phone, slide number 1, remember? But what have you done? You know what? If you thought about it, you have done some magnificent things. But you don't even think about them because we all are so worried and frenzied about the list of what we're going to do versus savoring the good things that we have done. I suggest to you, if you ever get in the mood to make a list, don't make a to-do list. Make a done list. A list of the things that you've been able to accomplish despite great challenges and sometimes great odds. In 1974, the Brothers of Christian Instruction said to me, if you will stay with us, we're going to send you to Europe to study, you're going to come back to Walsh College for 3 years, you're going to teach, and then we will name you president of Walsh College. 1974, to which I said, God bless you, that's a tremendous, generous offer, but I feel called to do something different. And I left. Had a little retirement program that was part of the institution. I cashed it in. I'll never come back to Walsh. I will never again be a college professor or administrator, and I knew that in 1994. In, what did I say? 74. As she said in her introduction, in May of 2001, I retired as CEO of a company. And people kept saying to me, what's in your bucket list? What are you going to do now? What's in your bucket list? I'm thinking, I have a bucket. I don't know what I'm going to do. 11 days later, now I'm retired 11 days. This wonderful man, Ken Hamilton, president of Walsh University, 56 years old, is sitting in a recliner at home watching television and has a massive heart attack and doesn't make it out of his house alive. It's now 2 days later on a Sunday afternoon, the board of directors have convened, need somebody to fill in for a month or two as president of Walsh. Well, Rich, this is a no-brainer. You were a student there, you were dean twice, you've been on the board for 9 years, will you just be president for a couple of months? No, thank you. There's a whole other story there I'm not going to tell. But a day later, I was named interim president, and I was going to do that for a couple of months. Flashback 1974. Nope. Sorry, great offer, no thank you, I got to move on. Oh well. 2001. What are you going to do? You've been retired now for 11 days. You haven't done anything yet. Isn't that unbelievable? If God wrote your bucket list, my bucket list, would be a lot different than what I might put together and what you might put together as well. There was a lady here about a month ago. She was part of the Philosophy Theology Symposium, and she talked about liturgical music. Somewhere while she's talking, along the way, she says this, Professor Donaldson. God loves you as you are. Now, I have heard that thousands of times. If you go to Catholic school, God loves you just the way you are. God accepts you as you are. But she added this other piece that I never thought of, and I thought, I got to tell you this in case you never get to hear it. God loves you as you are, but he loves you too much to leave you as you are. He wants you to grow and develop and change and love him more and become greater and become better. Isn't that neat? That's one I got to watch out for. Because many times in my life, and others of you here, Mr. Toot, CEO of the Timken Company, and brother's a director, and brother was one of the heads of his religious order, it's so easy when we're in the driver's seat. Sometimes that's a husband, a wife, it could be a child, it could be an athlete, it could be a fellow worker, it could be a church person. How easy it is for us to take whatever level of authority we have and use it to run over others. Something to file away so that if that day comes that you're in the driver's seat, be careful. Don't run anybody over. I saw this for the first time about 10 years ago. The little Baptist church on Whipple Avenue. And about once a month, the pastor would put that on the sign in front of the church. I am a trained strategic planner. Went to New York City and duked it out with the big boys on Wall Street. Won the award for strategic planning. Would you like me to help you organize your life? I can do that. And you know what? As a favor to you, I won't even charge you. I'll just help you. I love planning. I love strategic planning. Short term, long term, any term. And every once in a while, I mention to God what it is I'm going to be doing. Like, 1974, I told a guy, hey, I'm not going to do this. I will never be president of Walsh College. I didn't know it, but he was laughing at me at the time. We often think it's all in our hands. It's all up to us. It's all our plan. It's all everything we know. Not quite. My dear wife doesn't think I pray enough. This is one of the hardest lessons I've ever had to live in my life, and it often keeps me going. When Dr. Palmer comes into my office, at least twice a day, I'm not going to hear anything good. Not because he's not a wonderful man, but he has a way of collecting garbage. Coming from everywhere, anywhere, anytime. And he has helped me tremendously. Because there is that one entity, that one person that I can trust. You don't have to read a lot of books. You don't have to spend all your time in prayer. If somehow and some way in your life you know that God loves you and you can trust that no matter how difficult the challenge, he's going to help you. He actually knows the plan, even though you think you do. And so, Teresa, we come to the end of our final tour, and I leave you with a question that someday you will have to answer, perhaps at an event like this one, or perhaps elsewhere. If you had given the last lecture this evening, what would you have shared with the crowd? Thank you.